Welcome to the Darkstream, Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and unauthorized.tv. Thanks for tuning in. I imagine some of you are, shall we say, more than a little bit agitated by the recent decision of the Supreme Court to not hear the Texas versus Pennsylvania case that has involved practically every other state in the union. Now, I understand that a lot of people are disappointed. I understand a lot of people are concerned. I understand that a lot of people are upset. Ron already said that he's never been more interested in the live stream. I was actually planning to do a pre-recorded stream talking about evidence, and had prepared that, and then right as I was about to sit down and do that, I saw something cross my social galactic feed that indicated that the decision had been, or the decision to not hear the case had been released, and so it appears that nobody has any standing whatsoever to contest any amount of fraud. And in fact, if you look at the cases that were being presented, I think that this was probably the only possible outcome for a Supreme Court that had no intention of making itself the focus of everyone's attention for deciding the election. If they had heard the case, it's pretty clear that Texas would have destroyed the defenses being put forth by Michigan, by Georgia, by Wisconsin, and by Pennsylvania. Michigan's in particular was hapless. Pennsylvania's wasn't so much a defense as just a bunch of whining and screaming. And if they had taken the case, then they probably would have had to decide it in Texas's favor. And so that's why I think that the decision wasn't just made to not hear the case, but to some people's surprise, though not mine, the decision appears to have been a 7-2 decision. Only Alito and Thomas wanted to hear the case. And, I never had any confidence in either Kavanaugh or in Barrett. As you can see, if you go through my blog, I wasn't enthusiastic about either choice. And, Barrett in particular, for all the fact that people were impressed with how smart she was and all that sort of thing. The fact that she had the adopted children, the fact that she's a Vatican II Catholic, to me indicated that she would be a reed that would blow with the wind. Alito's impressive. Thomas, I think, is he tends to sort of stubbornly do the right thing when he does stand. But here's the good news, is that this is what I was telling you was coming all along. I said that there are 3 options. Number 1 being the legislatures, number 2 being the courts, and then the third option being the president himself doing his duty to uphold the Constitution. Now, the fact that these other options were, didn't serve their purpose, is actually a very important aspect of what's going to go into the president's decision. He has clearly, at this point, exhausted every angle. He has clearly given the legislatures with their plenary authority every opportunity to address the issue that were before them. But there's no reason whatsoever to get blackpilled about this. None. There's absolutely no reason to give up hope, to lose any confidence, because these are already things that we knew. This was already the situation that we have been in for a long time, probably decades. And so, I would not get upset. I would not be worried. I would not get agitated. Now we find out what President Trump is made of, once and for all. Is he a lamb or is he a lion? Is he a major historic figure, or is he just another non-entity and cuck who is going to talk big and posture, but then fold when the moment of truth arrives? And we don't know. We can't know. Somebody with the ironic name of Hockey God 98 said, "You're in a cult." No, Christianity is not a cult. Christianity is the one true faith. That's the only organization, that's the only group, that's the only cult that I'm in. I'm not saying this based on mystic and mysterious clues being dropped on the internet. I'm not saying this on the basis of anybody's theories or hypotheses or anything else. I am saying this on the basis of, number one, history. I have read a considerable amount of history. Some of it history that hasn't even been translated into English yet. And, history does not proceed in a linear manner. That which came before does not always accurately predict that which comes next. And so it's absolutely vital to be patient about this sort of thing. I'm being invaded by puppies. We're puppy sitting, and apparently I have some little visitors here. So anyhow, okay, we need to ban this person here. So anyhow, the other factor besides history is President Trump himself. President Trump has made it very clear what he considers his highest priority to be. He said this, I believe, less than 2 weeks ago. He said, "My highest priority is to defend the Constitution and to defend the laws of the land." And so what he is going to do, what he's going to say, and the decisions that he's going to make are directly related to who he is and how he sees himself. You know, the reason that Boris Johnson didn't back down when it came to the final decision on Brexit is because he saw himself as a Churchillian figure. Now, that doesn't mean that he can't end up cucking at some point in time. You know, it's actually gotten a bit amusing in Britain how the deadline for a no deal was, 6 months ago, and then there was another deadline 3 months ago, and then he got to the point where it's looking likely that there will be a no deal, and now it's very, very likely that there will be a no deal. You know, so he's more than a bit of a coward. He's more than a bit of a cuck. But at the end of the day, he is unable to allow himself to sell out his nation. You know, so for all that Boris Johnson is a weak man, blows with the wind, wants to be popular with the global elite, all that sort of thing, he is still apparently unable to completely abandon his image of himself as a Churchillian champion of Britain. And so if we look at who Trump is, who he sees himself as, if we look at the way that he has presented himself to the American people since 2015, you know, he said, I am here to put myself in the way of their arrows for you. You know, they're only coming after me because I stand in between you and them. And so, you know, I think that if you look at the way that he is viewing this, the way that he is viewing himself, the way that he views his historical, the role he is meant to play in history, I think that he has always been psychologically prepared for this moment. I think that he's expected this moment. And so, is that correct? Well, we're going to find out in the next month. And everybody needs to stop being concerned about, you know, oh, is it this date? Is it that date? Is it the 14th? Is it the 17th? That's not for you to worry about. You know, if he makes the decision to cross the Rubicon, and I strongly suspect that he will, then you'll know it when it happens. You know, and you know, perhaps it will begin the way that it's been suggested, my fellow Americans. Perhaps not. But, you know, we live in interesting times, and those of us who are Americans, you know, have the privilege of demonstrating, like our revolutionary forebears, that we can stand up and do what is right or not. I mean, this is a historical opportunity for every single American citizen. You know, what are you going to tell your children you did? What are you going to tell your children how you reacted? You know, I don't think that this is a proud moment for the Supreme Court. I don't think that this is a proud moment for a lot of those legislators. And so, you know, I can't tell you what President Trump is going to do. But what I can tell you is that everything that he has indicated about himself and about the situation suggests that this is his moment, that this is the moment that he anticipated. This is the moment that he knew was going to come. So, I've read a lot about various revolutions, various coups, various changes of government, and all that sort of thing. And it is more common than not that when an empire ends, it tends to end with some level of not particularly messy conflict. And that's what this appears to be shaping up to be. And so, be patient, be optimistic, and have some confidence in the man that you voted for back in 2016. And so, people talk about the fact that the perfume princes of the military are completely dominated by the establishment and all that sort of thing. Well, a lot of those characters are now gone. And don't forget that there's an entire new branch of the military that's been set up by this president. And so, either the guy is full of talk and is totally unwilling to do what he knows needs to be done, or this has all been foreseen and the actors are going to continue through with the play, and it's funny. It's funny because you can see the fear in the other side. Look at this comment. He lost an election, fair and square, and y'all want to start a civil war over it? Sick. Yes. There are literally now tens of millions of Americans who would rather see that than pretend to accept your false narrative. There's another comment here. You promote dictatorship. Well, what is a dictatorship? Dictatorship gets a unfair rap because it was applied to horrendous leaders like Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin. But a Roman dictator was generally the best of all possible rulers. And Roman dictators regularly and without hesitation took pride in laying down their power as quickly as possible. So, like many other terms, dictatorship can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing. It just depends on the quality of the dictator. Let me hit a couple of these comments here before I can't get back to them. What does Trump crossing the Rubicon to get his second term look like? What will Trump need to do to ensure future elections will not be stolen if he gets a second term? Well, what crossing the Rubicon, which is the metaphor that many people are referring to, looks like is probably the invocation of the Insurrection Act. The various media channels, probably including this one, would be seized, and I don't know whether they be shut down or whether they be permitted to operate under under some sort of government guidance. You'd probably also see a number of arrests, military tribunals, and it's not going to be the same as it was before. It's not going to be, you're not going to see the media shrieking and running around calling everybody names, because the people who were responsible for that are no longer going to be permitted to do that. In terms of what needs to be done, I mean, no matter whether it's Trump or anyone else, future elections need to be much more locked down to citizen IDs, to paper ballots, not using electronic voting machines and so forth. But I mean, that's easy. It's very easy to do. The fact that the architecture was set up the way that it was is practically a admission of intent. And if you read the book Unrestricted Warfare by the Chinese Colonel Liang and another guy, I can't remember his name, it'll give you a considerable amount of insight on the way that these contested elections appear to be related in some way to the nonviolent conflict that is international conflict that's been underway for the last 15 years or so. This is not an accident. I enjoyed this meme that popped up where it said that the Georgia runoff election was decided and due to a horrendous mistake by a Dominion engineer, Justin Trudeau and Nicolas Maduro were elected the new senators from Georgia. So, Anaf Habib says, the judiciary have basically said the Constitution is just a scrap of paper. Follow it or don't based on whims. It's a good gut punch for the few remaining normies out there to finally reject the Constitution drivel. I would say that's correct. I mean, they didn't say it's just a scrap of paper as much as they said, we believe that the plenary authority given to the states allows the states to obey or disobey as they happen to see fit, which is a little bit strange because it's practically an endorsement of the Confederacy. So I don't know who thought through that one, but anyhow, it's interesting. Let's see here. Larry Dynamite sends $2. Thank you. It says number one. Chris McCullough says, do you think there's a supernatural component to Trump's uncanny ability to make the wicked tear off their masks? Yes, without a question. Without any question. Underneath the legal conflict, underneath the ideological conflict, is the spiritual conflict. And this is a spiritual conflict. And so, that's why I think if you're concerned about this, if you're worried about this, the most important thing that you can do is pray for President Trump and ask God to grant him wisdom, protection, and courage. And then there's a good chance that, I suspect there's a very good chance that he's going to do his duty to the Constitution. Commander Zed says, the Pentagon sent the CIA message with the date 5 January 2021. Do we really understand what that means? Well, we understand that the CIA and the Pentagon are, practically already at war. And so that may have been a public declaration of it. Does that mean that January 5th is the date that the Rubicon is crossed? I don't know. I'm just a random guy living in Italy who happens to know a lot of history and has a reasonable amount of pattern recognition. I have no secret knowledge. I have no particular insight. I just happen to be extremely intelligent, which can be a good thing or can be a bad thing. But everything that I see indicates that there is no way that President Trump is not going to do what he sees as his duty to the Constitution, to the country, and to the American people. Now, what he sees as his duty, I can't tell you. No one can. But I do think it's worth noting that he's been very, very quiet and hasn't made any big public statements or anything. He hasn't even been tweeting all that much ever since the rally on Saturday. If you think that that means he's just sitting around playing Tetris or some sort of virtual golf or making his travel plans and packing things up to go back to Florida, I think you're probably mistaken. Chaz wants to know, will the internet get shut down? I think that if the internet gets shut down, then you will know that the Rubicon is being crossed. If the media goes down, you will know that the Rubicon is being crossed. So, and if this channel gets shut down, don't worry about it. Join unauthorized. This video will be there. So will all the others. And I can't stress enough how important this is. Regardless of what happens, get on the alternative platforms and support the alternative platforms. All this free stuff is a trap. All this free stuff is an attempt to control the narrative. So, I mean, if 1/10 the number of people who subscribe to Netflix subscribe to unauthorized, we could be rivaling YouTube and Disney. And we would. But, it's up to you. It's up to all of us. I mean, look at this. There's nearly 1,200 people watching this stream. How many of you are unauthorized subscribers or BitChute subscribers? It's not about necessarily us, but it's about the alternative platforms. And it's very, very important to support them. And it's going to become even more important to support them if things don't go the way that most of us would like. This is the time to stand up and be counted. This is the time to take your stand in one way or another. Larry Dynamite, thank you. Carolina Swamp Fox says, it was not part of their blood. It came to them very late. With many arrears to make good, the deplorable began to hate. Well, I think that a lot of you are really, really angry about this. Obviously, I'm not. Because I never had any confidence in the Supreme Court. I never had any confidence in the state legislatures, and I certainly had no confidence in the lower courts. They're wildly corrupt, and I've known this for 30 years. I've literally seen a district court judge make a decision by flipping a coin in court. That was the point at which all of my regard for the sanctity of the law disappeared for good. It's a narrative game. And the narrative, of course, is established by the media. That's why I tell people, don't watch television news. Don't watch cable news. You will actually be better and more informed simply by watching live streams and following Twitter or Gab or Social Galactic. You will be much better informed because you won't be misinformed. Let's see. No, and I really appreciate Brian Nielsen points out he's been a subscriber since day one at Unauthorized. I really appreciate that. It's fantastic, and you guys make this possible. But we're going to be able to do a lot more as we continue to grow. We're bringing new people and new features all the time. In fact, we just added a new feature tonight, which I have no idea if it works or not. But for those of you who've been wanting an RSS feed to the MP3s, we've now got a different feed on each channel that has the four most recent, has the links to the four most recent videos in MP3 format. So they're basically audio podcasts, and I'm not sure that we've implemented it in the way that people are going to want to use it. Obviously, we'll want to get suggestions from everybody. But the point is that it is, these alternatives are going to keep getting better. I have I've had my issues with Andrew Torba. I'm not on Gab myself. I will not be on Gab myself. But Gab has been really doing a great job of improving its services and providing a strong alternative to Twitter. I read Neon Revolt on Gab pretty much every day. BitChute is fantastic. BitChute does a great job of allowing all of the sorts of videos and stuff that are not permitted here on YouTube and elsewhere. Unauthorized is not about that. Unauthorized is much more similar to a Netflix or a Disney Plus. Not that we're producing that type of content yet. We don't have the resources to do it yet. But I counted it up yesterday. We have 1,800 hours of high quality curated videos. Wrangler Star, myself, Owen Benjamin, the legend Chuck Dixon. There's all kinds of stuff up there. You literally, if you started watching all the videos today, you could barely get done if you watch 24 hours a day for a month. And we're adding more all the time. So there's, this is the time. And this next month is regardless of which way it goes, this next month is going to be incredibly historically significant. So even as you worry about what's going to happen, what you should do, and that sort of stuff, enjoy it, appreciate it, take notes. Some of this stuff that is going to happen is going to be the kind of stuff that you're going to tell your kids and grandchildren about. So, so don't get caught up in the black pilling. Don't get caught up in being in despair or fear or any of those things. It's not for us. Yeah, Rachel Fulton Brown, absolutely. Alt Hero Q3 coming when? We're holding on to all of those things probably until March. We're going to be making a very big announcement, and there's going to be an onslaught of content that you probably wouldn't think that we're capable of. Why do you think Trump is different than the rest? Because he rejected the ticket. He was offered the ticket. He was part of the club, and he turned his back on them, and that's why he's so hated. Do you think Trump could do a lot of good in the private sector? He could, but he can do a lot more good continuing to serve as president. Let's see here. All right. Well, thanks very much for tuning in. Again, always wait for the president to speak, and wait 2 days before you react to what he said. So, and yes, we would absolutely give the God Emperor a channel on Unauthorized. And PFO Dynamite is now Larry Dynamite, we are informed. Dan Weston says, just updated my card and resubscribed to UATV. Thanks for the reminder. You're very welcome. And Jason Diaz says, when I get a new job, I'm going to resub to Castalia Library. The books are great. Glad to hear it, Jason. Good luck, and no fear. So, I'm Vox Day. This is the Darkstream. That didn't work. We'll try this.